I still remember the sound of her car pulling into the driveway. It was almost midnight. Rain was coming down hard, and I could barely see through the kitchen window. When I opened the door, there she was, my daughter, soaked through, hair plastered to her face, with 3 sleepy kids piled into the back seat. "Mom," she said, voice trembling, I need a few days, please." The words came out fast, like she was afraid to say too much. The oldest, Maya, was clutching a small backpack. The twins, barely 4 at the time, were crying softly. I remember bending down, trying to comfort them, thinking this was just another one of my daughter's rough patches. She'd had a hard few years, bad boyfriends, jobs that never lasted, and a temper that burned hot and fast. I asked her what was going on, if she was in trouble, but she just shook her head. "Just a few days," she repeated. "I need to figure things out." She wouldn't look me in the eye. I noticed her hands were shaking when she passed me the diaper bag. Inside there wasn't much. A few diapers, a sippy cup, a half-empty pack of wipes. No clothes, no favorite toys. Nothing that said this is temporary. Something in my chest tightened, but I didn't want to make it worse. I told her she could rest here, that we'd sort things out in the morning. She said no, she couldn't stay. She hugged the kids quickly, too quickly, and whispered something to Maya that I couldn't hear. Then she turned back to me, eyes red but dry. "Thank you, Mom," she said, and before I could ask anything else, she was gone. The sound of her car fading down the road still echoes in my head sometimes. That night, I sat in the living room with those kids asleep on the couch, watching the rain pour against the window, waiting for her call. I told myself she'd be back in the morning, maybe the next day. But deep down, something told me I'd just watched my daughter walk out of her children's lives. I stayed up all night, every light in the house on, hoping her headlights would flash through the driveway again. They never did. By sunrise, I was on the floor beside the couch, the twins curled up against me, Maya holding my hand like she was afraid I'd leave too. That's when I made a promise I never thought I'd have to make, that no matter what happened, those kids would never feel abandoned again. And I kept that promise, even when it cost me everything later. At first, I really believed she'd come back. Every knock on the door, every unknown number that called, my heart jumped. For weeks, I told the kids, "Mommy's just getting herself together." I thought if I kept saying it, it would somehow become true. But days turned into weeks, and then weeks turned into months. Bills started coming in. Doctor visits, school supplies, groceries for 3 growing kids. I dipped into my savings, then into my retirement. I told myself it was temporary. Everything felt temporary back then. Maya, the oldest, started asking questions first. "Grandma, why doesn't Mommy call?" she'd whisper when the twins were asleep. I'd always find a way to soften the truth. "She's working hard, baby. She loves you so much." But after a year, those answers stopped satisfying her. She got quiet. Too quiet for a child. The twins grew up calling me Mama without even realizing it. I corrected them at first, but after a while, I stopped. I guess part of me wanted to hear it, to fill the space my daughter left behind. By year 3, I accepted she wasn't coming back. Or maybe I just got tired of lying to myself. I started the process to get legal guardianship. It wasn't about taking her rights away, not in my heart. It was about making sure the kids could go to school, see a doctor, live a normal life without everything being temporary. The paperwork felt heavy, like betrayal. I remember holding the pen, staring at my daughter's name on the forms, and whispering, "I'm sorry." But someone had to take responsibility, and she'd made it clear it wasn't going to be her. Every birthday, every Christmas, I left a chair open for her. We'd talk about her like she was just away for a while, traveling, working, trying to get better. I thought it was kinder than the truth. When Maya turned 16, she stopped pretending. "She's not coming back, Grandma," she said one night while washing the dishes. "She doesn't want us." The way she said it, no anger, just acceptance, broke me in half. By then, I was in my 60s, tired but grateful. Those kids gave my life purpose. I watched them grow into strong, decent people. I thought maybe, in some strange way, my daughter's leaving was a twisted kind of gift, a second chance to do things right. And then one evening, 13 years after that rainy night, the phone rang. A voice I hadn't heard in more than a decade said, "Mom?" It's me. Just like that. Everything I'd built, the peace, the stability, the family we'd become, started to tremble. In the early years, I tried everything I could to find her. I called old friends, checked shelters, even reached out to one of her exes I swore I'd never speak to again. Nothing. It was like she'd been swallowed by the earth. I wrote letters, dozens of them. Some I mailed to her last known address, others I never sent. They always started the same. "We miss you. The kids are safe. Please come home." I'd slip pictures inside, drawings the twins made, school certificates, birthday cards signed with messy crayon handwriting. None ever came back. Not one word in 13 years. I even went to the police once, just to ask what could be done. The officer looked at me with tired eyes and said, "She's an adult, ma'am. Unless you think she's in danger, she's allowed to disappear. Allowed to disappear." That sentence haunted me for years. The first few years were hardest for Maya. She'd run to the mailbox every day, hoping for a letter. On her 8th birthday, she waited by the window all afternoon, convinced her mom would walk through the door with a cake. When the day ended in silence, she went to her room, shut the door, and didn't speak to anyone for 2 days. The twins were too young to remember her clearly. They'd ask things like, "Did Mommy like pancakes?" Or, "What color was Mommy's car?" Sometimes they'd look at pictures of her and giggle, like she was some kind of storybook character instead of a real person. That hurt the most, watching her memory fade in them while it burned in me. After 5 years, I stopped checking the mailbox so obsessively. After 8, I stopped writing letters altogether. I told myself she was gone. Maybe living a new life somewhere. Maybe trying to forget the mess she'd left behind. It was easier to think she was safe than to imagine the truth. Still, every now and then, I'd dream of her. In those dreams, she'd walk through the door and say, "Mom, thank you for keeping them safe." I'd wake up crying, my pillow wet, my heart heavy with something that wasn't quite grief and wasn't quite hope. When I finally heard her voice again, 13 years later, it didn't sound like the daughter I used to know. Her tone was sharp, almost angry. There was no warmth, no hesitation. She didn't ask about the kids, didn't ask how I'd been. All she said was, "We need to talk. I'm coming over." And just like that, the past I'd buried came stomping back up my porch steps. She came on a Thursday afternoon. I remember because the twins, well, they weren't really twins anymore, not in spirit, had just come home from work and Maya was out picking up groceries. It was one of those quiet, ordinary days that suddenly turns into something you'll remember for the rest of your life. When I saw her step out of that car, my knees almost gave out. She looked nothing like the girl who'd left 13 years earlier. Her hair was darker, her face thinner, hard around the edges. She had on this sharp suit, not a wrinkle on it, like she'd walked straight out of some corporate building. But it was her eyes that froze me. Cold, restless, scanning the house like she was entering enemy territory. "Mom," she said flatly, standing on my porch. No hug, no smile, just that word, clipped and distant. I tried to speak, but my throat closed up. I wanted to say everything at once. How much I missed her, how the kids had grown, how proud I was of the family we'd become. But before I could get a word out, she brushed past me into the house like she still lived there. Her eyes landed on the family photos. There was one from Maya's graduation, another of the twins at their first jobs, all smiles and braces. I saw her expression twist. "You've been busy," she said, almost like it was an accusation. "I did what I had to do," I replied softly. "They needed stability." "You don't start," she snapped, turning on me. "You think I don't know what you've been telling them? That I just abandoned them? You think I didn't have my reasons?" My heart pounded. "Then tell me, sweetheart. Tell me what happened. Where did you go?" She looked away, jaw tight. "It's complicated," she said. "I couldn't handle things back then. I had to get away. But I'm ready now. I want my kids back." Those words hit me like a slap. "Your kids?" "They're grown, love. Maya's 26 now. The twins are 17. They're not—" "I don't care how old they are," she interrupted. "They're mine. And you had no right to keep them from me." I felt the room tilt. "Keep them? You left them, Sarah. You drove off that night and never came back." Her face twisted with something between anger and guilt. "You don't understand what I was going through," she hissed. "You always think you know best. You always make me the villain." Before I could answer, the front door opened and Maya walked in, grocery bags in hand. She froze when she saw her. The air went still. "Maya," my daughter whispered, her voice suddenly soft. "Baby, it's me." Maya didn't move. She just stood there, eyes wide, then set the bags down carefully on the floor. "No," she said quietly. "You don't get to call me that." That was the first time I realized this reunion wasn't going to heal anything. It was going to tear us apart. It happened 3 weeks after that first visit. At first, I tried to keep things civil. I wanted her and the kids to talk, to maybe rebuild something. But every time she came around, it ended in shouting. She'd bring up the past like a weapon, accusing me of turning her children against her, of stealing their love. The kids barely spoke to her. The twins would find excuses to leave the room. Maya wouldn't even look at her. Then, one afternoon, she showed up unannounced. I remember because I was folding laundry, and through the window, I saw her pacing outside, phone in hand. When I opened the door, she said, "You'll regret what you did." Her voice was cold, rehearsed. I thought she was just angry again, but she meant something else entirely. The next morning, 2 officers came to my door. One of them asked, "Are you Mrs. Helen Carter?" My stomach dropped. They handed me a paper, an official notice. My daughter had filed a report claiming I kidnapped her children 13 years ago. For a second, I thought it had to be a mistake, some sort of sick joke. But the words were right there in black and white. Unlawful custody, parental abduction, withholding minors from biological mother. I couldn't even stand. I sat on the couch, hands shaking, trying to understand what was happening. "She left them with me," I whispered to the officer. "I didn't take them." "She left them." He looked at me kindly, but all he said was, "You'll have to explain that to the court." When they left, I called Maya. She was already crying. "Grandma, what's going on?" she said. "Mom's been posting things online, saying you kidnapped us, that you ruined her life." I couldn't even answer. I just sat there, feeling my heart split open. For 13 years, I kept those kids safe. Fed them, clothed them, stayed up nights when they were sick. I gave up my own life so they could have one. And now the person who abandoned them was painting me as the criminal. When Sarah came by later that week, I asked her, "Why are you doing this to me?" She didn't look guilty. She looked determined. "Because you took everything from me," she said. "My kids, my reputation, my chance to start over. You think you're a saint, but you made me look like a monster." "You did that yourself," I said, my voice breaking. "All I did was love them." She shook her head slowly. "We'll see what the court thinks." Then she turned and walked away. The silence that followed was worse than any argument we'd ever had. It was the kind of silence that tells you something sacred just died, and there's no bringing it back. I'd never been inside a courtroom before that day. I'd seen them on TV, all polished wood and order. But when I walked into that room, my hands trembling around a stack of documents and old photos, it felt like walking into a nightmare. My daughter sat across from me at the petitioner's table. She wouldn't look at me, but I could feel her presence like a cold wind. Her lawyer, a young man who probably wasn't even alive when she was born, kept whispering things to her, sliding papers across the table. She nodded, expression tight, jaw set. I had a public defender because I couldn't afford anything else. He tried to reassure me, said things like, "You did what any reasonable person would do. And don't worry, the truth will come out." But his eyes gave him away. He knew this wasn't going to be simple. When the judge entered, everyone stood. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might burst. Then it began. Her lawyer started by painting me as controlling, manipulative, a woman who took advantage of her daughter's mental health crisis to gain custody of her grandchildren. He said I'd kept them hidden, refused contact, falsely portrayed the mother as unfit. I wanted to shout that it wasn't true, that she'd disappeared, that I'd begged her to come home. But all I could do was sit there and listen to lies echo off those walls. When it was my turn to speak, I tried to hold my voice steady. I told the judge about that rainy night, how she left the kids with nothing but a diaper bag and a promise to come back. I explained how I filed for guardianship only after years of silence, how I sent letters, made calls, even contacted the police. "She left me no choice," I said. "I wasn't trying to steal them. I was trying to protect them." My daughter's eyes finally met mine then, not with love, not with remorse, but with something bitter. She muttered, "You always have an excuse." The judge asked questions about the guardianship, about the children's well-being. I showed him school records, medical forms, even birthday photos. Everything in my power to prove I hadn't stolen them. I'd raised them. Then Maya was called to testify. My heart broke just seeing her walk up there, confident, composed, but shaking slightly as she swore to tell the truth. She didn't look at her mother once. "She left us," Maya said quietly. "I was 13. She told Grandma she'd be back in a few days. She never came. Grandma took care of us. She's the reason we're okay." Her voice cracked on that last word, and I saw tears slide down her cheek. The courtroom was silent, except for that sound. Sarah shifted in her seat, looking small for the first time. Her lawyer leaned toward her, but she just stared at the floor. When the judge finally spoke, his words were calm, measured, but to me, they felt like a lifetime exhaling. "The court finds no evidence of kidnapping or unlawful custody," he said. "The respondent acted in good faith as the children's guardian." I didn't cry in that moment. I just sat there, numb, the weight of years pressing down on me. But when we walked out of that building, Maya slipped her hand into mine and whispered, "It's over, Grandma." I wanted to believe her, but something in me knew, with Sarah, it's never really over. After the court ruling, everything should have gone back to normal, but it didn't. The kids tried to move on. They wanted peace, to close that chapter. But I could feel the tension humming in the air, like a storm that hadn't quite passed. Sarah started showing up in small ways, messages on Facebook, long posts about a mother's pain, veiled accusations about being robbed of her children. She made herself the victim, and strangers ate it up. People I hadn't spoken to in years started messaging me. Some to ask what was true, others to quietly judge. I wanted to scream that none of them had been there the night she drove off, that none of them had rocked those babies through the fevers, the nightmares, the birthdays with an empty chair. Then one day, Maya came home holding an envelope. "She sent this," she said, dropping it on the table. Inside was a letter, long, handwritten, and bitter. Sarah wrote that she'd been addicted back then, that she was in a bad place and couldn't handle motherhood. She said she'd gone to rehab, gotten clean, rebuilt her life. And then she wrote, "But you had no right to take what was mine, no matter how badly I failed." I read that line over and over until the words blurred. That's when I realized the truth. Not the kind that ends neatly, but the kind that just is. Sarah hadn't just been running from her life back then. She'd been running from herself. And even after all these years, she still was. I wanted to be angry, but all I felt was this deep, aching sadness. I kept thinking about the little girl she used to be, how she'd cling to my hand on the first day of school, how she'd say, "Don't let go, Mama." Somewhere along the way, I had let go. Maybe not by choice, but by necessity. The kids read the letter too. The twins didn't say much, but Maya did. She folded the paper slowly, then said, "She's still trying to make it your fault." I nodded, not trusting my voice. A few months later, Sarah stopped contacting us. Her social media went quiet. I heard through a cousin that she'd moved out of state again, started over, new job, new name on the lease. Just like that, gone. Sometimes I sit on the porch at night and think about her. I still keep that first letter she ever wrote me. The one where she said, "Just a few days, Mom." The paper's worn, the ink faded, but I can't throw it away. Because despite everything, the lies, the pain, the courtroom, the betrayal, she's still my daughter. And those kids, they're my heart. I didn't kidnap anyone. I saved them. And if I had to do it all again, I would. Every sleepless night, every sacrifice, every heartbreak. Because love doesn't always look like what people think it should. Sometimes it looks like staying when someone else runs.